Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that very nice introduction. It's a really pleasure to be here for a whole bunch of reasons. But first, let me just say something about the introduction, because as insurance commissioner, I get to travel all up and down the state, giving speeches. Can you hear me okay back there? Is that better?
Better.
As a candidate for governor the last year, I get to give lots of speeches. Sometimes the introductions, well, just don't go nearly as well. I was at a high school recently. A student stands up to introduce me. She had this incredibly bored look on her face. Her introduction to me was short and sweet. She said, "This is Mr. Poizner. He's been an engineering geek in Silicon Valley for 20 years, and now he's into insurance." That was it, the whole introduction. She sat down. When I got home that evening, I had to go ask my 18-year-old daughter, Rebecca, "Why did you introduce me that way?" Sad but true. These teenage daughters, they're a handful. So I live with my wife and my 18-year-old daughter in Northern California in Silicon Valley, and that's in Los Gatos. And I got to say, I not only love coming here because, well, first of all, in Southern California here in this area, there's actually Republicans here. Yay! Well, where I live, it can be pretty lonely. And it can be pretty rough being a Republican. So I was precinct walking one day. Just in case you ever go up to Northern California, beware if you do some precinct walking. I was precinct walking one day in Palo Alto. You've ever been to Palo Alto? It's right next to Stanford University. It is the liberal capital of Silicon Valley. So I was knocking on doors, and the door opens. There's this 12-year-old girl standing there. Now, precinct walking is a numbers game to some extent, so I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell this 12-year-old girl my whole story so that maybe she'll pass it on to her parents. So I launch into it. The fifth word, this girl has this disgusted look on her face, and she puts out her hand and stops me, just cold. And then she starts to point at me. She says, "I know who you are. You're Steve Poizner, the capitalist."
Yeah, I'm proud of it.
It was a bit like meeting Barbara Boxer as a child.
That was good.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, guilty as charged. I believe in the free market system down to my bones. Most of my background's not in politics. It's starting and running high-tech companies. You heard that my last company, it was into this GPS technology. So you probably haven't heard of the company before. It's called SnapTrack. But you do have my technology in your purse or your pocket right now. We did figure out a way to put a GPS receiver into a cell phone. So when you dial 911 from the cell phone, the emergency operators will know exactly where you're calling from. We've saved hundreds of lives with it. Really proud of it. Sold that company to Qualcomm a few years ago. And then I made a decision. I just can't sit on the sidelines any longer. And the state of California is heading off of a cliff. The people running this state are making some terrible decisions, and I just needed to step up and do my part. Now, my first foray into public sector service wasn't to run for office, but was to focus on the public school system. Now, the public school system is deteriorating, no question about it. Do you know that 50% of the fourth graders in the state of California cannot pass basic reading tests? 50%. Now, how many of you went to the California public schools? Just curious. Wow. Looks like more than half of you. Now, the irony is that we know how to educate kids. When you all went to the California public schools, we had a fantastic public school system. And by the 60s, it was the best in the country, bar none. And we've gone from first to worst in a short period of time. So I decided I needed to dive in and figure out how to do something about the public schools, because in my opinion, we will never get California back on track until we fix the public schools.
Yay.
Now here's something you need to know about me. I'm an engineer, like my daughter likes to remind people about, and I'm an entrepreneur. I like to fix things. I like to build things. And so before I start to tackle a problem, I need to immerse myself in the details, and then step back and figure out, where to fix it. So I decided to volunteer and teach in the public schools for a period of time so I could learn firsthand the conditions. Now, wow. Lo and behold, it was hard, actually, to get in the classroom. I thought they would embrace me, volunteer and all. Well, it didn't exactly work out that way. So I live about 45 minutes from the East Side Union High School District. This is in East San Jose, lower income part of San Jose. 45 minutes from my home. I decided to drive one day to the district office. And this is 12 high schools in this district, 25,000 low-income kids go to this high school district. I wanted to teach there because I could really learn the issues by teaching at one of their schools. So I go to their district office one day without an appointment, just drive in there, go up to the receptionist, introduce myself, say, I'm Steve Poizner, I'd like to volunteer and teach, not looking to be paid, where do I sign up? And the receptionist kind of tilted her head a little and go, what? I've never heard that one before. And she said, hang on a second, I'll go to the back, she said, and go get the person, the head of personnel that hires teachers. And so it takes a few minutes, a big building, and this was at lunchtime, I'll never forget this. By the time the head of personnel came out, she had this unhappy look on her face, and she had a little mustard on her lip there. And she asked me, what can I do for you? Well, looking to volunteer and teach, I want to learn as much as I can, want to help, not looking to be paid. She says, well, what qualifies you to be in the classroom? So I said, well, what do you think about this? I graduated from the University of Texas with an electrical engineering degree. I graduated #1 in my class and came out to Stanford Business School, got an MBA from Stanford with honors, and I spent 20 years starting and running high-tech companies, really successfully in Silicon Valley. And then last year I was in the White House, where I was in the National Security Council in their counterterrorism group. I told her I had a security clearance well above top secret, and I got there September 4th, 2001. 1 week before the 9/11 crisis, and I said, I can't tell you exactly everything I did because it's classified, but I helped build a new Homeland Security plan for the whole country. And without missing a beat, she looks at me and she says, nothing you've said qualifies you to be in the classroom. But now, I don't have a very big ego. I know some people here, like Scott and others, and I don't have a big ego, do I? So anyways, whatever size ego I had shrank in size that day. She set me packing. Wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I went home, got on the phone, called the 12 high school principals directly, left a message on their phone. I'd like to volunteer to teach at your high school. None of them called me back, except one. Art Darren from Mount Pleasant High School calls me back. Gets me on the phone. He says, you want to teach at my high school? It's hard. Have you been here? And I said, well, yes, I definitely want to help you. And he says, well, I need help. He goes to the district, gets me guest teacher status. I end up teaching 12th grade American government at Mount Pleasant High School for a year, gang members and all. I just got to tell you, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Really. And the most rewarding. It was a fantastic experience. And I learned firsthand the conditions of what goes on in these schools. And I'm telling you, the teachers and the principals, they are not set up to win, not anymore. Who runs the schools now? The first day it rained, and it leaked in my classroom, and I had to position the trash can, in the right spot there to collect the rainwater. Now, this is a Silicon Valley public high school, wealthy Silicon Valley, with a leaky roof. Now, that's just shameful. I mean, who runs that school? How come they can't fix the roof at Mount Pleasant High School? Well, I'll tell you one thing that's changed. From the 1960s to today, the legislature, they've just taken over the public school system. They have. It's a fact. Micromanage it out of Sacramento. Now, they do that through the Education Code. Now, the Education Code are these mandates that the legislature applies uniformly to all 5,000 schools at the same time. And of course, that's just nonsense. I'll tell you one reason why I'm running for governor. I'm going to yank control of the public schools out of the hands of Sacramento politicians. We're going to move down to the local level where it belongs and where it used to be. Now, I became such a passionate believer in local control that after I got out of the classroom, I then helped pioneer the California charter school movement. I don't know if you've been following charter schools, but they're fantastic choices for parents. There are public schools that are granted waivers from the Education Code. It's the ultimate in local control. We need to give all public schools the same type of freedom and flexibility charter schools have, and as governor, I promise you I'll do exactly that.